So thanks so much for being here. I'm glad to see you guys. It's week 6, session finalize and publish. We're basically wrapping it up, those last minute details after you've gone through all the hard work. So this is usually a really quick topic. Some of it's review because, again, according to how you like to go about working in Canvas, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish all of this stuff. And you can either start doing it one way and end doing it another. And so I do kind of revisit some of the ways. Maybe in the beginning, we talked about copying content, but you might be actually copying content at the end. And I'm going to go over the ways to do that. So I'm sharing my screen, and just to reiterate, totally informal, small group, just interrupt anytime you have a question and we can talk through it. I am going to have on the left-hand side is that asynchronous resource that I've been putting together as we go. Just in case you want to have a place to refer back when you're trying to accomplish some of these steps. So on this list, the first thing that I talk about is 2 methods for copying your content. So on my right side, I've got my Canvas courses, my sandbox demo for those of you who are not building in an academic course that already is going to have students placed into it. You're building it elsewhere. Or I've also got open my academic demo, which is supposed to basically set it up as though I'm going to have students enrolled, even though it's just a sample course. So the first method is to push materials from the course you're in to a different course. So when you do this, you're going to look at the ... menus and look for the option to copy to. And you'll see this in a few different places. The most useful one is in the modules page, and it's in the very top. When you go to the ... of the entire module, you can choose to copy to, and then of course, any courses you're enrolled in will pop up on the drop-down list, very specific to you. Mine, I am a system admin, so I have every course in the entire university. That's super overwhelming. So I really rely on that search toolbar. And if you just start typing something in, first few digits, it will pull that up. Works very well. After you find the course you want to put it in, you're just going to hit the copy button, and it's literally going to take it all and send it right on over there. Super easy. You can also do this in the assignments and quizzes areas where you can choose to copy to for one specific item. So just anytime you click the ... the option will either be there for everything that it works for, or on something like these paper clips, they are file attachments, that you will not see it there. So you can copy the whole thing by doing copy to on the whole box, but some individual items you will not be able to copy by themselves. So I swear every time I get talking, my dogs go insane and decide that it's a time for a party. So if you are hearing the clatter of my little puppy needing his nails trimmed, I do apologize. He's really excited. So basically, the second way, you're talking about pulling information from somewhere else into a course. So that's where you're going to hop into your academic shell. You're wanting to pull in some stuff from maybe your Blackboard copy or from your sandbox, and you're going to do that with a little bit more powerful of the resource in settings. And that's going to be your import existing content, right? Import course content here. And you're going to select copy a Canvas course. You're going to be able to search to find the name that you want to copy from, because you're going to pull and import the information. So I can do a different course, or I can do any of my SOPT demo courses, any of the ones I'm enrolled in. And once I select one, I can select specific content. So I don't want to do all content because that will create a bit of a mess if you pull the whole thing over. So I'm just going to do select specific. And then when I click the import button, I'll get the more options. I do like to point out though, that adjusting events and due dates is really, really useful. Not so much maybe for summer term or even fall because it's a new system, but your spring term courses already set up with all their due dates. Next spring, you're going to want to use this feature here, and it will automatically shift according to the calendar change based on what you enter here. So just make a note next time that you're copying stuff that's really finalized and has due dates already all set up. You want to use this shift dates to adjust for moving from 2021 to 2022.
What if we accidentally put the wrong dates there?
It will change them all wrong. Like it only will do exactly what you tell it to do. So if you put the wrong dates, it will make your dates in the copy incorrect. Now there's ways to correct it. You can clear out the course that you were copying to and do the copy again. You could, manually go in and fix them. It just kind of depends on the scale of oops that you're talking about if it happened.
So in order to use that feature, the shifting of the dates, that would kind of have to mean like the time periods are the same. So for example, if last semester class started on a Monday, this next time class should start on a Monday.
Correct. So it all just kind of depends. Like if you decide, so let's say class starts this year on the 10th, and that's the date that you had in your course that your copy that like it's the one that you had, like that's just, you didn't decide to open it on Friday, you didn't decide to open it on 2 weeks early. I'm just using one day as an example. You would want the equivalent for what that's changing to in 2022. So let's just say, for example, let me come up here and show you, it would be the 9th.
Okay.
So whatever the equivalent of what you did last year to what you did this year. The beauty of doing it this way is that once you've made the copy, it's going to do the dates all correctly. And then you can go in and you can change if you want your course to start on a different date.
Okay.
So that won't affect it after the copy has taken place. So I'm going to actually take that off because I don't want to use that feature. So I'm going to uncheck the adjust the events and due dates. And when I click import, I'm going to get that second button that pops up with all of the stuff that's in my course. So I can pull any of the things that I select. So it's a little more comprehensive than using the push method and the copy to feature. But either way, it does the same thing. I'm going to cancel this. Any questions on moving your stuff around back and forth? This is a first session topic and then an ending topic because you just never know when you're going to need to move stuff. All right. So the next feature is talking about people. So I'm going to jump over into the people tab of my course. And I'm in my academic course because I'm going to be talking about only academic stuff at this point. We're going to pretend you've wrapped up all your sandbox building and you're really moving your stuff into that academic space to finalize the entire process and be done with it. No more temporary, what am I going to do in the meantime? I've actually copied my stuff in. I'm working in my real space. My students are going to be enrolled. And I'm really finalizing everything for the last parts that don't work when I'm in a sample space. So I would have a list of students that came in from Banner and the registrar. So their enrollments would have been processed. They'd all be listed here. But I also have the ability as an instructor to add additional people. So this is really big for PT because you guys do a lot of collaboration and you want people to look at your course. But it's not going to apply to any instructors of record. So if you or your co-teacher are the actual people getting the credit for teaching the course, you will be handled through Banner as well. And your contact person is, excuse me, I just got a scratchy throat. Your contact person is Amada, and she is very familiar with the fact that, if somebody changes, somebody leaves or a new person comes in, she would be able to go into Banner and update that for you guys. And it talks to Canvas 4 times a day. So really, once she makes that change, it shouldn't be long before that actually processes. However, for everybody else who's not an instructor of record. So you're basically just going to need their email address, and then you're going to need to select the role. Don't select the teacher role if you don't want that person to get grade notifications every time assignments are being turned in. You'll want to select colleague, so that grade aspect has been turned off for colleague. So it's just a lot more convenient for the person who's not really responsible for your course to not have hundreds of notifications telling them to grade work that they have no business dealing with. The second part is basically going to be affiliates. So this is a nice way that you basically get an account through HR for somebody who doesn't work for UIW and they are somehow affiliated. So say a closed captioner for a student who has accommodations or some other relationship. You can give them access to be able to edit content or simply view. And the affiliate roles don't get to look at user information. And they also have some flexibility if you wanted to be able to maybe edit and lock it down even further. You can talk to the system administrators about that. The observer role is also important for PT because you guys do, like let's say, for example, one of your courses where you've got a main teacher and then you've got, say, 8 sections and one of you takes each section as like an advising role. You can, as an observer, you can be paired with specific students and follow their grade progress and their performance to be able to give them advice if you've followed that processing portion. So it's kind of a neat feature. Not sure if it would allow exactly what you guys are doing, but sometimes when I hear about the setup of your courses, I think about, oh, I think Canvas might be useful for something like that. May not be perfect, but keep it in mind. One of the best ways that this would be useful is if you did the colleague role and then put each person in a specific section, and then they can only interact. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys, I had a child come home from work. So basically, you're going to have multiple sections, and then you can lock people down so that they only interact with the people within their section. And that can just really help focus the efforts a little bit as well when you're breaking out your workload. So all you need is the email address to make your selections. And when you click next, it will confirm that the system has located the user and give you the button to be able to add them. And then they'll get that invitation that you see in the pop-up bar when you've also been added this way. And they basically have the role to accept, and then they get access. So pretty straightforward.
Are those invitations time sensitive?
They are. And when you send them, you get another link that pops up here that says X out of X pending or not accepted. It'll say something like that. And then it'll say resend. And that'll be an active link. If you click that button, it will resend them out. So I have, and I can show you in my dashboard over here. I've got.
What's the time? Like, is it like a day or 2 days or?
I do not know the time limit. That's a really good question. I could probably ask our customer service manager if he could find out for me. But it basically, I would say you probably have more time than that, maybe 10 days. So I have 101 invitations that haven't been accepted to this particular resource training. And I just clicked the button here, and now every single person has got it again. So you get to manage that.
Okay. Also, if like sometimes we have like people do like our course evals, and so they just need access to kind of see like the organization of our stuff, of our materials inside. So what role would that be? Would that be colleagues still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the person who goes in to do that, they may have the ability to change something, but they are in a position where they would know that they're not changing it. And this would just give them enough access to not be locked out of anything, where some of these other last 4 roles have a little bit of lockdown that they can't look at.
If our assignment of our courses, the ones that we're actually the instructor in, have been done through Banner, then why are we also getting that invite that says teacher on it for each of our courses? It's been loaded. And if we don't accept that, I mean, I keep getting these pop-ups, those green pop-ups for a teacher for my courses.
Well, it depends on what they're for. There's more than one type of course. So the only Banner controlled are going to be the actual academic courses. Anything else that's an organization, that's summer, fall, or spring Blackboard courses, these are going to be ones that you're going to see invitations to accept. So
No,
I'd have
the ones I keep getting them for are my courses that are getting loaded into the Canvas. So it was my principles of evidence-based practice for the summer, and it was my fall course, and I kept getting that thing at the top of the screen to be invited.
Okay, after we're done with this, I will look you up, like in particular, and look at your account and see what's going on. And I can connect you with the administrator to see if there's something going on with that. I wouldn't imagine that, I don't believe that you were going to get acceptance invitations for actual academic courses, just everything else, but I could totally be wrong, and I will follow up.
I mean, they're there. I was just surprised that was happening.
Yeah,
so,
I would not know the answer unless I looked at it specifically for
okay.
each person's experience. So we are talking about people and adding people and the ways that everyone gets enrolled in a course. And then there's also going to be the other option of managing your groups in this space. So again, I'm just going to reiterate, we're not talking about working in our sandbox or any other Blackboard copy or any other unofficial type of course space. We're talking about in the real academic course where your students are enrolled, you're going to want to set up your groups. And the reason being you wait to set up your groups when you have students is so that you can assign them, because you can't not do that if they're not enrolled in the course. So it's actually pretty straightforward. You'd click add a group set. You decide, what you want this to be called. And I'm going to choose final project groups. And then I'm going to say that I want to split my class into whatever number of groups you want. And it will automatically assign my students for me as long as they're enrolled in this course. So I can't demonstrate because I do not have my students, but for the sake of this training, if you wait until your students are enrolled, it will automatically happen. If you do not want to do this, you can also allow self-sign up. The only word of warning I like to remind everybody is if you do a self-sign up, make sure you have students actually go and sign up before you open up a group assignment associated with self-assigned groups. That's because Blackboard would allow students to go into an assignment, sign up for a group, and then turn in their assignment all in one order, but Canvas does not. Canvas will allow them to turn it in individually rather than redirect them to sign up for a group. So make sure that you manage that workflow directly yourself. Okay, I'm going to cancel this.
Okay, on that group, student groups, can you set the groups or does it randomly pick groups?
You can set the groups as well. So if I had students in here and I created those group sets, I would have a pop-up that comes, not a pop-up, it's more, let me just show you instead of try to tell you. Let's say I have, say I'm gonna have 3, I'm gonna say save. So let's say I had these group sets, these were created, and then I enrolled 15 students in here. I would have a list of students down this side of the page, and I could drag and drop and put them in whatever whatever manually assigned way I wanted to do so. So it does not have to be an automatic random assignment, but it can be, but you have to have the students in there first before the random automatic assignment will work.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So basically, you'll see your people, you'll see your groups. You can create more than one, as many as you need. And then students actually will have an additional button here that will say groups, and it'll be in their global navigation. And that is how they get into their group space to do their work. So just keeping that in mind, it's a little bit different. It's the only action in Canvas that changes this global navigation. Otherwise, it always stays the same. It's only the enrollment in a group that adds a new icon.
So that's like our breakout rooms in Blackboard or in Zoom.
Well, I mean, Zoom would be when you're working together, like in an actual synchronous moment, whereas the groups in Canvas, they can go back and forth and they don't have to be there together. So similar to a place to go talk privately. Yes. So once you've set up your groups, you can do that in this space, and then you can go over to your assignments to make your group assignments, anything you want the students to turn in together as a group. Or you can also create your group assignments from the actual assignments page. So let's say I hadn't set up my groups over in People. I could come in and I could say, okay, my sample assignment, this is the one I'm going to edit. I'm going to make this a group assignment, and I can scroll down to find that option. And when you select it, you're going to have more information. So you'll want to decide if you want to assign grades to each student individually. The default is going to give the whole group the same grade, but you could change that. And then you can choose here one of the things you've already created in the people section, or you can do a new group category and do all of the same options that you were doing over in People here as well. So multiple ways to accomplish the exact same steps. And then once you've entered this information and saved it, you save and publish and finish this up, then your group assignment is set up and ready to go for your students in your academic course. So none of this stuff copies because it's all tied to group enrollments. And that's why you want to wait for it to be the very last thing that you're finalizing after you're already working where your students are enrolled. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. Any questions over groups or group assignments? Okay, so one of the other aspects that's tied to being in your final academic course space is going to be assigning any work to sections. So as you can tell, when I put in my assign to box, my cursor, it's assigned to everyone. In my academics course, if I'm teaching more than one section, they're going to be listed here. Your sandbox is not going to be able to have that capability. And even if you were to create the sections in your sandbox, they don't copy over. So it's not even a point in even paying attention to that until you're ready and working in your actual course. So in here, you can assign to everyone, and then you can add additional ones. You can make the first one for section 1 due on Mondays, the second one for section 2 due on Wednesdays, and really differentiate that. You could also do everyone and then one individual student. So once your student enrollments are in here, they're going to be listed here as well. So some of these options you don't see until you're in your actual space. And make sure that you save all of those changes so that it applies, or you will lose your work. Okay, the next really useful finalizing button, I'm going to go to the home, even though you can get to this button from many different places, is your student view button. And this is nice for just making sure that everything that you've wanted to set up is looking the way you want it to look for your students. And it, cleans up and takes away all of the things that you see as an instructor that they do not. Keep in mind that everything you do as you're in this student view is saved with test student data. So some features will not work in the teacher area if you've taken an assignment or a quiz as a student in the student view. So if you're not done making changes, you'll want to make sure you click the Reset Student button to clear that information so that all of the features in the teacher still works. This is, for example, I had the mastery path set up on a module assignment. I actually did it to see what would happen. And now the system thinks a student has done that assignment, so it won't let me make a change to the mastery path. That's all because I've got this test student data, and I can fix that by clicking the reset button. That also clears out any grades that you've accumulated as a test student, so you can test your grade book as many times as you want by resetting and doing it again. And every time you reset and come back in, you've regenerated that student information can be used. So now if I hop into my grades, you can see it takes a second to load. I still have my student, but everything that I had done is cleared out. So I can start over fresh.
So when would you not reset?
When would you not reset? After your course has started, there's not going to be, I mean, once other students have taken this quiz, then I certainly don't care if my test student is going to block me from making changes to it because real students have made changes. So really it's just part of that workflow, you know, reset the student when you want to refresh and start over, and any other time it's never going to have a negative effect unless you wanted to see what you were doing and then you reset it, you'd have to go do it again. Okay. Making sure that your gradebook is set up properly. So the best thing to do is to use that test student space and come in and enter your sample grades to make sure that everything is happening exactly how you expect. So you can enter those grades, you know, just going in and putting in some, you know, a variety of grades, and you can test your view in the grade book, right? And you can see what happens, but you also can go back and then see in the test view takes just a second, and you can click on grades to see what the students are seeing. So you see how it had a notification because I had put in some grades, and then this is what your students are going to be able to see and how they can manipulate this information, because they do have some control over what they do. So you can see if they calculate based only on graded assignments versus taking them away, you can, they really do get some control. And then they can hide and show some options. And then of course, if I thought, I want to go do it again, I could reset the student and that would clear out what I put, or I can just leave the student view and it will save that information. I can go back and keep playing with it. So that way it retains the data if you don't click reset. Okay. The next really useful feature, as we're winding down of what we've got left for finalizing, and that is going to be in your settings, and it's the validate links and content option. So I'm going to click the start link validation, and it's a process. Depending on how much information you have in your course, it can take a while to run. And sometimes I've found if it's having a bad day, it has failed on me, but it's only happened once, and I've been working in Canvas for years, so I try not to judge that it's actually a problem, but just keep in mind it's checking every single link in your entire course to see if they're broken. So if you have a lot of documents, a lot of images, a lot of links, it's just going to take some time. Once it populates, you're going to have a count of how many broken links that you have total, and it's going to give you a list with links to get to the place that there's a problem. Okay, so keep that in mind. But this particular line right here, show links to unpublished content. Things I have purposefully left unpublished are listed if this check mark is here. So if I take it away, I would hide some of that number if it was because these were from being non-published, but my number is not. So all of my stuff is published, and I actually have 24 problems. So I can show you, I can open in a new tab and take a look and see what in the FS reminders discussion, what's broken. Well, looks like a picture of some kind. And all of this information would need to be updated anyway, because these dates are going to be out of date. And then of course, broken link. And your students are able, if they come across something like this, to say, you know, there is a broken link here. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to say send, and ideally it's going to tell me, and then your students can be helpful. But I'm not sure what's happening there. I'll definitely follow up and see what the results were. Maybe I get an email afterwards. I'm not really sure. We'll see. So you got something broken. You definitely have to go in and edit. It will tell you all the way down the page. If you have been careful and not made any mistakes in making your links to anywhere in your course, you'll also have a celebration with confetti pop up on the screen. So it's kind of exciting. All right, so that's the link validation tool. I also want to say real quick before we move on, you might see external links in this resource were unreachable. Now, if you open that link, and takes a minute for it to load, but once it loads, or doesn't load, if you can open it, then you're likely getting this external link was unreachable due to a secondary firewall, some sort of login. So if you use VitalSource, for example, VitalSource requires students to have an account. They have to log in to see their textbooks. Well, you can put the VitalSource link in Canvas and it's accurate and it will work just fine for everybody who has an account. But Canvas doesn't know whether or not they have an account. So it flags it just to say, this system couldn't reach that system because Canvas doesn't have an account. So keep that in mind. If you verify your links are working fine, that it may just be because of that secondary login. Canvas doesn't have that access, so it's flagging it as being broken even though it's not. And this one, whatever this is a link to, it really is broken, or it would have opened by now. Oh, I say that, look at that. Nope. It was just being really slow. So sometimes we do have to be patient. Browsers are like that. I have a wired internet connection. My speeds are super high, and yet still sometimes the things get bogged down and it just takes them a while to load.
Could you show where the course link validator is again? Is it in settings? Okay, thank you.
Settings, validate links in content. Okay, and then the last part we have is to publish the course. So you've gone through, you've got everything moved into your academic space, you've checked all your due dates, you've used the student view, you're like, yes, it's all set up, it's how I want it, and now I'm ready to let students have access. Well, in all the previous sessions, we've talked about how you control when your files release, so you can publish, unpublish, or lock down files. We've talked about how you control when your assignments also are available and locked down if you choose to use those settings. And we've also talked about how modules can be published or not published, as well as date released. So that's that first layer of publication. The second layer of publication is going to be based on participation dates in your course settings. So it's important that you have this set up to be exactly what you want, because even if you publish your course for the students, they aren't going to be able to see it if the participation dates are not set up. So first thing you're going to notice is you're going to go into a course, and by default, it's going to say term and it's going to be empty. This is pulling from the very standard UIW term dates. And being that everyone here is health professions, those are hardly ever, in my experience, which isn't very long, going to apply to you. So you're going to need to change this and select course. Your course entry will then override that term, and whatever UIW has decided to do, you will be special and your course will function differently. So at this point, you get to select when you want students to have access. If it's the first day of class, if it's the Friday before, if it's a week or before, or 2 weeks before, it's totally up to you. You get to set that date and time. Same concept for the end date. You get to choose when the course is over, and then you can choose to check restrict students from viewing before or after. So keep in mind, students will have the ability to read only before this date and after this date if you don't check these. If you don't want them to see it at all, then you need to put a check. Once you've done that and you scroll down to say update course details, because you need to save your work, that applies it to your course, then you're going to go to the home page, and your very, very, very last step is click publish. And that is the button right in the upper right hand corner, and it will turn green. And now your dashboard will reflect that the course is in the top area for published. And that's it. Any questions?
I had a question. I'm not sure if you might have answered it in another workshop, but anytime we make changes in our courses, do the students always get a notification when we do something?
No, it really just depends on what you're doing. So if you're in a page, or if you're in like a quiz or an assignment, you'll see a checkbox at the bottom of wherever your settings are that says notify users that this content has changed. You have to take action for them to be notified. If you don't do that, they won't know.
Because I feel like, you know, because sometimes we work odd hours. And so I remember Dr. Goey would be like, yeah, the students all found out that I was working at like 2 a.m. or something like that. And I was like, oh, like, so does that mean we accidentally checked off that box?
Probably not. I mean, they could probably see that things are changing even if you don't tell them. I
They
mean,
don't get a notification that we made a change.
correct.
Like I'm always like, oh my gosh, if like you're working at 2 a.m. or whatever, and you add something, like I don't want all the students to get a notification at 2 a.m. when they're supposed to be sleeping, you know.
The only things, so you've got some things you can't really control for that. You've got announcements. If you click to add an announcement, they're going to get an email because you added an announcement, unless you post it at a later date and time. So you can control. If you do grades, you enter grades, they're going to get a notification that they have new grades. You don't get to say, don't tell them. So if you post the grades for them to see, they're going to be, they're going to be told. And if they're awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to see that.
Okay.
So yeah, there is definitely some ways that they're going to see your behaviors. They're also going to become intimately familiar with your information because they're in here working on it so often. So if you make a change and they're in, they're familiar, and something new pops up, if they're paying attention, they'll notice, even though it doesn't tell them unless you check that box.
So it's the grades and announcements that they get immediate notification.
Correct. And then they're also going to get notification if someone posts in the discussion board. Like I mean, really, like any activity that would come up in the view course stream as having something new going on, that's letting them know something is happening. And typically it's not going to be for you building a page or adding a file. It's going to be for some other activity more so than that, like grades or discussions. That's a good question. And once you'll start to notice also, you get a lot of notifications for things that are going on. So it's very similar to them. They won't get grade notifications the way you do, but you'll get notifications about activity that's going on in the course, and they are as well. Okay, if you guys, there is a question in the chat. How do you request a sandbox? There is the wonderful Canvas page for all of our UIW information. I'll put it in the chat here. And everything you could ever want to know is hopefully on this page, or it's edited regularly to keep everyone in, up to date. But there's a request a sandbox, and it will send an email to the system administrator, and she'll build that out for you. You can request as many as you want. There's no limit. And any other questions about this topic? Okay, I am here for the remainder of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording for finalizing and publishing your course, and I'll stick around to answer other questions.